The GOAT, a.k.a. Tom Brady, making headlines once again. There's reports out there saying that Tom Brady is expected to be approved as a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders at Tuesday's NFL Fall League meeting in Atlanta. Now, the NFL's Finance Committee has reviewed Brady's bid and plans to bring it to the other owners to vote. 24 of the league's 32 owners are needed to approve it. So if all goes well, it all goes through, Brady would purchase approximately 10% of the Raiders, along with businessman Tom Wagner and owner Mark Davis. Let's welcome in someone who knows a lot about the Raiders, former CEO of the Raiders, Amy Trask. Amy, thank you so much for joining us. As we just mentioned, reports out there indicating that Tom Brady getting close to being approved as a minority owner of the Raiders. We've been hearing about this process for a little bit now, but Amy, walk us through how Tom got here. What did it take to get to this point in the process?
Well, thank you for having me. And a question about the process is a great question because it's far lengthier than most people realize. When a team is looking to sell a minority interest, they must first propose the deal to the league office itself, the legal department, the finance department, and that is a very lengthy process. Only when the league office is satisfied with the answers and the information will they bring it to the attention of the Finance Committee, which is comprised of owners. That in itself is a lengthy process, and only when the Finance Committee signs off on it does it go to the league as a whole for a vote of the ownership as a whole. As you mentioned, 24 votes, so 23 plus the Raider vote, are required to pass that. There's one other part of this process, and it's another element of this transaction which has not been reported on at all, or if it has, very, very, very little, which is not only does the league office have rights with respect to reviewing this and the Finance Committee, and not only does league ownership have the ultimate right to approve this transaction, so do to the other minority owners in the Raiders. In other words, even before Tom is admitted, there are other minority interest holders in the Raiders, and they have rights with respect to any interest that is sold at any time, irrespective of who is selling that interest. So if any Raider owner is selling a piece of his interest, or a piece of its interest in the sense of equity owners, or entity owners, I should say, any of those ownership interests that are sold, existing owners have rights with respect there too. So you've got to go all the way back in this. Raider minority owners had to approve this, then the league office had to sign off on it, then the Finance Committee had to sign off on it, and now it goes to a vote of the ownership as a whole. And I will tell you, as a general rule, and by general rule, I mean almost always, nothing goes to the vote of the ownership as a whole unless the league is confident that they can get the 24 votes. If the league lacks that confidence, they will yank it off the agenda, which I don't believe is reported to happen in this instance. You asked about how this transaction came to this point, and I've given you a sort of lengthy legal answer and procedural answer, but there's also a life comes full circle answer. The individual who has orchestrated this potential purchase by Tom is Jim Gray. Well, Jim attempted to orchestrate a purchase of a minority interest in the Raiders while I was with the organization and handling the sale of that interest, and I scuttled that transaction. So Jim is now very close to accomplishing that which he tried to accomplish decades ago.
So, Amy, the guy that is pushing this forward for Tom is somebody that didn't get through when you were there under the Raiders, and now it's all coming back
right.
Full circle.
Life comes full circle. He did try to get a transaction through, was very, very resentful and angry when it didn't go through, but now he can take satisfaction in knowing he accomplished decades later what he wasn't able to accomplish then.
Yeah, like you said, nothing gets brought to these league owners unless it's basically a sure thing, so everything is trending in that direction. As mentioned, you have a lot of experience with this process as a former exec of the Raiders, where the Davis family has a heavy presence. What, if anything, can you tell us about things from their perspective in regards to Tom joining the Raiders ownership and their feelings about it and involvement?
Well, every team is required to have one controlling owner, or one owner who has denominated the controlling owner. That is, in this instance, the Davis family. That has been the instance for decades and decades and decades. There's nothing new about that. So every team has to have a controlling owner. In that instance, that is the Davis family, and Mark Davis is the one who represents that interest with respect to ownership. I mentioned earlier that there are minority shareholders, minority stakeholders in the Raiders, but those don't have a voice with respect to control of the organization. Certainly their input should be elicited. They do, as I mentioned, have rights to scuttle this transaction should they wish to, but all control of the Raiders rests with the Davises and Mark Davis. But there's a lot of people in his ear, as you can well imagine.
And Brady would be the third former NFL player to have a stake in an NFL team. But Brady, as most people know right now, he's in his first year as a game analyst on Fox. That's certainly an interesting component there. How does his pending ownership of that club affect all of this as well, if it does?
Well, yeah, it does, because the league has passed a rule, established a policy. I don't know if it's an official codified rule, but their policy is that if you are an owner of a piece of a team and you are a broadcaster, you can't have all the access to other teams before the broadcasts that broadcasters traditionally have. Broadcasters, as you know, from the networks, go to the teams the days leading up to a game. They meet with the coach. They meet with players. They have access to practice. Brady will not have any of that. He will have to look to his colleagues at Fox to fill him in on that which he won't get firsthand. So the issue in that regard really isn't a Raider concern. It's got to be a Fox concern. Fox has to decide if and to what extent they're comfortable with that. And certainly, to date, it appears they are comfortable with that, because Brady has been ruled out of those meetings and denied that access to practice, starting with the start of the season, because it was anticipated that this sale would go through.
Yeah, certainly a very unique situation, being part of a broadcast team and then also having this bid to join, the Raiders ownership. Amy Trask, we certainly appreciate it. A lot of fantastic insight here as it pertains to Tom Brady joining the Raiders ownership. Always good to see you, Amy.
Thank you for having me. If okay, I will add one final thought, which is that people think I harbor a grudge against Tom Brady because of that game. And the answer is I do not. Tom did what every fan wants the quarterback of every team to do, which is what you'd want your quarterback to do in that instance. And that's all that Tom did.
Amy, we appreciate it. Clearing the air, just giving one final thought. Again, always good to see you. We certainly appreciate it. It's a pleasure. And CBS Sports HQ has got you covered. News, highlights, scores, everything you need all season long. Make sure you stay locked in right here to HQ.